Today we're going to talk briefly about FundingUniverse's CrowdPitch event, how it works, and how to best prepare yourself to present at a FundingUniverse CrowdPitch event. The format for CrowdPitch is very simple. You have 4 minutes to pitch. This is a very hard and fast rule. Once 4 minutes is up, we will cut you off. So try to shoot for more like 3 minutes and 50 to 55 seconds or so for your presentation so that you're able to get everything out in the allotted time frame. We then move on to 3 minutes of Q&A where the audience will be allowed to ask questions. We tend to have anywhere between 50 and 100, sometimes in excess of 100 people at any given event, regardless of where you're at in the United States. And then after the 3 minutes of Q&A is up, we then open it up for about 2 to 3 minutes, although this is untimed, of feedback from the panel of judges, which usually consists of angel investors and venture capitalists. Let's talk briefly about your investor presentation, though. I want to get into some of the details of what you should be spending your time preparing and how to best present yourself at a FundingUniverse CrowdPitch event. I'm going to walk you through a PowerPoint presentation slide by slide and give you some insight into how to best prepare yourself for this event. First, your first slide should be an introduction slide. This is very simple, little to no text. Throw your logo on there or maybe a product image if that's what type of business you are, and introduce yourself really quickly. Introduce your business. I recommend doing this in a one-line pitch type of format. Just quickly, we are so-and-so and we do this, and then move on to the next slide. Make sure that you dumb that one-line pitch down as much as you can so that everybody in the audience, regardless of their professional or investment background, can grasp what it is your business does. If you have a partner with you up on stage, you can introduce them. However, I do recommend that just one person stand up front to do their presentation. Next, you'll be talking about the problem or customer pain, as some investors like to refer to it. What you're talking about here is the pain that your customer feels. The most common mistake I see here is entrepreneurs talking at length about the weaknesses or problems that their competitors have. They're telling me why their competitors are bad at X, Y, and Z instead of telling me what pain the customer feels. Make sure that you make that distinction because you'll have plenty of time to talk about the weaknesses of your competition later in the presentation. Just frankly tell me what needs of your customers are currently going unmet. Is the problem real or is it perceived? And then back your claims with as much data as possible. If you can give me trackable metrics that really quantify the problem, I'm going to believe you much more than if you were just making a lot of this up. Next, give me the solution to the problems that you listed in the previous slide. How does your product or service solve those solutions specifically? If you're a web-based business with a subscription model, I would like to know what features in those subscriptions are addressing the problems that your customer experiences. And if you can prove that your product or service solves those problems, I'm going, again, to believe you much more likely than if you're just assuming that they will solve these problems. So customer reviews, testimonials, some sort of trackable metric is going to help push me over the edge if I'm watching you in the crowd or if I'm an investor on the panel. Next, tell me your business model. This really consists of two things. Answer these two questions. Number one, give me specifics into what do you do. Number two, how do you make money doing it? So again, giving the web-based business, for example, your subscription model. Tell me what you charge per prescription or subscription, sorry. If you have varying levels of subscriptions, I'd like insight into that. Ad revenue, how does that work? If you're a products business, tell me a little bit about manufacturing and distribution channels. Are those in place? Give me kind of a how it works. Tends to work really well here if you do a diagram such as that. But I just want some insight into how you make money, and that's what you're trying to establish here on this slide. Far too often in these events, entrepreneurs finish their 4-minute presentation and everybody is left scratching their heads wondering what it is that company does to generate revenue. Next, product description may be relevant to your business, it may not. If you are a consumer product or a physical product type of business, I would like you to walk me through that product if possible, if you haven't had enough time or opportunity in the previous slides to do that. So pitch this slide as if you're talking to your ideal customer. Put your sales hat on, get excited, tell me what's unique about your product. Just in the end, don't spend too much time on this slide, because most entrepreneurs do, and it's just a small element of what investors are looking for in the end. So be careful here. Next, this is a very easy, short slide, but it's one of the most crucial. One of the number one reasons investors don't invest in businesses is because they have a hard time believing that you will actually be able to sell whatever it is you're creating and make money off of it. Most entrepreneurs, you probably fall in this boat, are either very early revenue or they're pre-revenue, meaning they haven't generated any sales yet. And so there's a big risk there for the investor in believing your assumption that people will actually buy from you. Your marketing strategy, if well thought out and elaborate and creative, is going to put a lot of concerns to rest that a lot of investors would otherwise have. Make sure you're being careful here, being smart, that you're listing very creative and hopefully some innovative marketing strategies to get your product into the hands, or however it may work with your type of business model, get it to the customer and get them buying it. Competition. I want to just give you a brief diagram here. This is how I recommend you pitch it, and I've just given you an example here. I'm not a car fanatic or anything, but I know enough about cars to know that Rolls-Royce is really luxurious and also really expensive, and that Kia is probably the most opposite on that spectrum. This gives you a good glance into what the car market looks like based off of the two variables of luxury on the x-axis and price on the y-axis. So I can quickly at one snapshot see where Ford, Nissan, Toyota, and so forth fit into this puzzle. Tell me how you're different using a chart like this. You can change the variables. In the end, you're preferably wanting to position your company up and to the right. Kind of stand alone. You're the best at the two variables that you're laying out here. Also, give me any sustainable competitive advantages you have. Don't tell me that you're open 24 hours a day and that you've got the best customer service, because those aren't things that are really sustainable types of competitive advantages. Those are just kind of areas where, in your opinion, you're different. I want things like intellectual property, partnerships, exclusive agreements. Those types of things really resonate well with investors because they're ways that you can fight off competition in a sustainable way. Next, tell me about your team. List the names and titles of the management team. If anybody on the management team has done anything particularly impressive in their careers, I would like to hear about that if it's relevant. So directly related experience, entrepreneurial experience, those types of things. If you're a young type of management team and first-time entrepreneurs, new to this industry, I want to know that you've got some sort of traction already and that you've proven that you can execute. Otherwise, I'm going to have a really hard time believing why you should be trusted with my money if I'm the investor. Also, never underestimate the value of advisors and board members. Investors love to see that sort of social proof. So if you have them, state them, mention them here, and make sure that they come to the surface in your presentation. Projections and milestones are important, but they're positioned at the end of this presentation because typically, if you're running out of time, this is the most okay slide to skip because it's pure speculation. But I do need to know, if I'm an investor, roughly when you're hoping to be profitable. Give me a month when you plan to hit profitability. Then I'm really interested in years 3 through 5. I want to see that you have the capacity of exceeding 20 million or so in revenue, that you've got good scalable margins, that you're that type of business that's going to have a good exit opportunity, because that's where I'm going to get my return on investment if I'm going to invest in your business. I want to also know the status and timeline of what's going on in your business. What type of traction do you have already? Have you generated some meaningful revenue? What proof do you have that somebody else out there cares besides you about your product or service? The best way to prove that is through some real solid market acceptance. So revenue, profits, intellectual property, partnerships, some flagship customers, people that I've heard of buying your product or service. That type of stuff is really interesting to an investor, and it builds a lot of credibility for you. Lastly, here I would close by wrapping up what the deal is. What are you offering to an investor? how much ownership, what funding amount. You could include pre-money valuation if you wish. It's not necessarily imperative, because if you give an ownership amount and a funding amount, I can back into that if I'm an investor. If you're doing a convertible note, obviously some of this is irrelevant. Just give me the funding amount, really. And then quickly, 10 seconds or less, tell me what you plan to use the funding for. Marketing and advertising, product development, working capital, those types of things. I just want to know that if I'm an investor really quickly. Now, I want to wrap up with giving you a few tips and some other miscellaneous information. So assuming you end there with your deal summary, you're just going to go right into the Q&A. Throughout the whole presentation, first of all, speak loud. Interesting public speaking phenomenon. When you speak loud, it tends to show a higher level of comfort and confidence. So be confident up there, good posture, be excited, be passionate, engage the audience. Be very short and sweet during the Q&A time. If you're quick with your responses, you're able to get out as much detail about your business as possible. No matter what, in 4 minutes, people are going to have questions. You can only be so perfect in your description of what it is your business does. So allow people to ask lots of questions. Don't go on and on trying to answer the one question. Images, diagrams, charts, all of those things are really valuable to a presentation. They're engaging. I pay more attention if I've got something to look at aside from text and bullet points. If you can replace a slide entirely, have no text, but have a really good image that tells a story that you can then talk about and elaborate upon, I'm going to listen a little bit more closely usually. Next, be honest, even if it's painful, particularly in the Q&A portion. If somebody asks a real challenging question and you don't know the answer, don't feel like you have to make up an answer to try and sound smart, because it'll usually backfire on you. It's okay to say, I don't know. And then bring the right people. If you're the CEO and you're a tech business and you don't know necessarily everything about the tech side of your business because you've got a great CTO, it's okay to bring your CTO. I wouldn't necessarily have the two of you alternate portions of your presentation, but I certainly would invite him to come up in front of the audience during the Q&A portion in case you're asked a challenging technical question, so that he or she could fill that question. So with that, I'd like to conclude and wish all of you the best of luck. If you have questions, you can contact our events team. Again, wish you the best of luck.